The silver screen, a glamorous term for early Hollywood, full of misogyny, racism, bad morals, and hugely problematic elements. As a millennial, I could easily go into more detail about that, but nah, screw it. I'm not gonna do that. Don't get me wrong, I acknowledge all of those things and more, plenty more, existed back then and still most decidedly do to a certain extent. But I don't want to do videos about it. There are plenty of other channels out there doing videos on classic Hollywood's problems. So I'm not going to. Instead, my plan is simple: introducing classic films to a new generation. It's my hope that new people will learn to appreciate these old films in much the same way as the previous generations have, including my generation and newer. Now, if I get an older generation, say Gen X, or, baby boomers, or even the older generation prior to that, I'm not going to complain because they might find it interesting to hear from a millennial's perspective what I think of films that they may have grown up on, ignoring the fact that I also grew up on them because I was raised by a baby boomer. Now, I know that there are good things about these pieces of history, sometimes just as good as media coming out now. So I plan on going back as far as I can, and I currently have some silent film era movies. So it's pretty far back, and going forward from there. I don't intend to go any further than the 80s in terms of newer. I don't want to go past 89. Even for recommendations, if it's prior to 90 for release date, I will do everything in my power to make that happen. But if it was made in 89 and released in 90, I'm not going to. There are plenty of films prior to that I am more than happy to do. There are plenty of reviewers that are already reviewing films from the 90s. I don't need to be another one on that list. The requests have to be in reason. They have to be. I have to be able to get a hold of a copy of whatever you're asking me to watch. If it's on Netflix, great. If it's something that I own, great. That's even best. That's the best thing of all. If it's something my dad owns, great. I can borrow it from him. Or if it's something that my public library has, see also two of the movies that I'm going to be reviewing, that's also great because they have a pretty extensive selection of older films. My first and second reviews are both checked out from the public library. So it's great that I can do that. I really, really want to introduce people to these classics, so I'd rather stay out of the 80s even. The only reason that I'm even making the 80s part of this is because of one of my first reviews. It's going to be my third. It is The Changeling, 1980s The Changeling. Stars George C. Scott. It is an amazing haunted house film. It is considered one of the best haunted house films of all time. And I've not seen anyone do a review of it. So I decided I would do it. It's one of the deciding factors of me making this channel. I want to see people learn what the old films have to offer. One of the films I'm planning on reviewing sometime in the future, depends on if someone requests it or if I just have to take a day and just be like, I'm reviewing Day at the Races starring the Marx Brothers because I want to do Day at the Races starring the Marx Brothers. I also have a fair amount of Laurel and Hardy. I have an Abbott and Costello film, and I also know where to get more. I know someone who has all of the Three Stooges. I know how to get a hold of Charlie Chaplin. I'm pretty sure I know how to get a hold of Buster Keaton. I'm not positive on that one. But I've got that whole selection. That's not even going into Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis or any of the other comedic duos. let alone musicals, which have comedic elements. So if I decide to just do a bunch of comedic reviews of old films, I'm set. Um, I also have access to an old Sherlock Holmes from the 50s starring Ronald Howard. It's not the Basil Rathbone version. I believe that one came out in the 60s. Uh, I'm going to be doing the Ronald Howard version. It's just episodes. I found it more enjoyable than the Basil Rathbone, which is probably blasphemous. However, I also liked the Jeremy Brett version better too, and that one would be available too because that one came out in the 80s, which means it is within my cutoff. If I decide that I'm, or if someone suggests this, because I'm putting this out here into the universe, uh, I have the complete MASH, including the movie, all of the seasons. So I could do reviews of MASH if I decided that I needed to take a break, or if someone decided to make a request for it. Please, I don't know if I'll accept the entire series as a request without more than one person asking. I may just do the movie if you request, and then if you continually request, I'll do the episodes slowly over time, maybe. Otherwise, I'll do MASH during breaks or something. I don't know. MASH is one of those ones that you can fit in wherever because it's so long. My first review is going to be 1944's The Uninvited. My second review will be 1948's The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. And my third will be 1980's The Changeling. Now, yes, all of them have a ghost theme. All of them have a. I did not intentionally do that. I was thinking about The Changeling, and then I went, oh, it's been ages since I watched The Uninvited. I want to do The Uninvited. And then I remembered Ghost and Mrs. Muir and how funny it was, and I decided to do those three movies as my first three reviews. Now, that was a bit silly of me, but I got a theme. The other thing I'd like to mention is I am aware that some of the comedic movies are not going to play as comedic as they would back in the day. For example, Marx Brothers. I brought them up before, I'll bring them up now. Groucho Marx is highly sexist. He is. He is very dismissive of women, especially one woman in particular who just keeps coming back for more. She showed up in almost every Marx Brothers film that I can think of. However, the thing that people may not realize is he's like that with everyone, including his brothers. Like, even in the films, the only person that kind of stands up to him a little is Chico. And that's on occasion. Like in Day at the Races, there's one of the best scenes I've ever seen in any movie for comedic anything. And it involves Chico and Groucho having a conversation. That's all it is. And it's great. But Chico's the only one who kind of slid under the radar for Groucho being dismissive and rude to him. Everyone else, utter disdain, which to me is funny. I find it hilarious watching him get away with making such comments to people, even in that time period, or maybe especially because of that time period. My goal is to, if I come across those issues like sexism, for example, Marx Brothers, I will mention it in passing and then move on. I plan on reviewing these films the way a modern reviewer would review a film, without the modern baggage. I will mention, for example, if there's blackface, but I'm not going to dwell on the fact that there's one scene of blackface in this entire film and how dare they have this blackface. Like, blackface is bad. Everyone acknowledges that. No one is saying it's good. But if the rest of the film is good, just skip that scene. Simple as that. And I'll tell you what the scene is. I'll try and give you a heads up for which scene it is, and then you can just skip it. Now, for Marx Brothers, if you're really bad with sexism and you don't think you can handle Marx Brothers, maybe you should just skip Marx Brothers, because all of their movies are kind of like that. But I'm going to look into requests that people place, and I'm going to try to fulfill them. If you ask me to review a movie such as I'll use this as an example. Willard. If you ask me to review Willard, and I'm talking classic Willard, not the newer one, I'm going to ask you where you expect me to find a copy of it. Because as far as I'm aware, it was only released to VHS, and the VHSs are at minimum $70. And that's a problem for getting a hold of it, because I don't believe my father has a copy or the library has a copy, because the library doesn't carry VHSs. So I don't know anyone who actually owns a copy of Willard. And then, of course, if I was going to watch Willard, I'd want to watch Ben, and Ben's also difficult to find. I think that one was released in an even more limited release schedule than Willard was. So, terrible idea. But if you're going to ask me to review something like that, make it a feasible request, please. I will do anything in my power to fulfill your request. However, if it is something that requires an inordinate amount of money, I am not going to fulfill it. I can't. Unless my channel somehow becomes super popular, which I highly doubt. I am expecting this channel to stay small. I am doing a niche market, also known as old movies. So, highly doubtful that it's going to get any popularity at all. If it does get popularity, hey, that's great. And I'm more than happy to allow that popularity to happen. If I reach a certain amount of subscribers, I'm probably going to start a Patreon. I'm not starting one right off the bat because I don't find that it's worth it unless I have enough interest. So if I have a lot of people following me who are going, hey, we want to give you money because y'all are crazy, then I will start a Patreon. Otherwise, I'm not going to, because there's no reason to. Why start a Patreon if you're not going to make any money using it? Like, to be honest. I'm doing this more to get the word out than anything anyway, so I don't mind if my channel stays small. And I'm hoping that people will return and check out my reviews and not mind the fact that I am filming on my laptop's web camera and using my laptop's microphone, and I don't know how to edit. And I'm learning how to edit. Well, I will be. And I'm really bad at this, and I can't look at the camera because I keep forgetting it's up there because I'm paying attention to the screen because I'm still getting used to this. And I feel bad about that, and I do apologize for not having my eyeline focused correctly. I'm going to try and remedy this over the course of the next couple of videos, but I cannot guarantee I'll succeed because I have a tendency to draw my eye to the middle of the screen, which is not the best place to go, but it's gonna happen. I hope people are willing to join me for these reviews. I will try and be better and better in each video after this, and I'm hoping that I'll at least get some interest. A couple of viewers. That's all I'm asking for. So to end this video, allow me to introduce both the channel and myself. Welcome to Memento Argentum, where remembering the silver screen is a requirement, not a request. I am your host, E.E. Lin, and please join me next time for The Uninvited.